Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Kathy. Today I'll be creating a couple of cards using the Monster Love stamp set from Concord and Ninth, as well as the Brie Mine stamp set from Honeybee Stamps. And when I saw these little guys, I just knew that they had to be fuzzy. So that is what today's video is about, how to make these guys fuzzy using Fun Flock. So let's get started. I started out by stamping the monster using Extreme Black Hybrid ink onto a piece of 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. There are a couple of tricks when using the Fun Flock, so I'll be going over quite a bit of that as we move along through the video. I decided to use the heart and hands for the belly for this particular card. One thing that I really liked about this set is that you do have options for that monster's belly. There's that one with the heart, and then there's just a regular round belly, which is in the second card. I used an acrylic block to stamp the heart because to make things a little bit easier down the road, it's best to leave the monster body stamp in a stamp positioner. And a stamp positioner will also definitely be make things a little easier down the road as well. One thing with the Fun Flock is that you do want to add a layer of color underneath it. I just used a Copic marker that was pretty close to the flock color that I want to use. It doesn't have to be exact, it just needs to be something, close. Without adding that layer of color, there's potential of ending up with some bald spots on your little critter. The next step is to add a good layer of glue over your image. And I don't know if you noticed, but I did draw circles around his little eyes, and I was careful to go around his teeth and around the back of his hands. The glue is going to obviously adhere the Fun Flock. Now about the glue, I have found that the Tombow liquid glue gives the best results because it's a glue that's not too thick and it's not too thin, and that's important. So a regular glue pen, that didn't work out very well. I tried Aleene's tacky glue, and that was a little bit too thick. So I would recommend that you use Tombow liquid glue or something similar to that consistency. Now when you apply the Fun Flock, you apply it very generously, and then you kind of press it down into the glue. Now with the magic of YouTube, it looks like I just dumped off the excess right away, but I did not. You do want to wait for the glue to dry a little bit before you brush off all of the excess. This is why you want to keep the stamp in your stamp positioner. The Fun Flock will actually kind of lighten up the stamped image, so I wanted to make sure that I could overstamp in the exact same spot. When I was pressing down the Fun Flock while the glue was wet, some of the glue squished out a little bit, so his fur kind of went below his foot. So easy fix there. I just kind of scraped it off with a dental tool. You don't need a dental tool. You could use anything like a craft knife, craft pick, a toothpick, anything just to scrape that off. Next up, I stamped the heart and his hands onto another piece of cardstock. There are coordinating dies for this stamp set, but for this one I decided just to fussy cut the heart and the hands. Quick and easy Copic coloring. I'll be sure to have all of the Copic colors listed below in the description, as well as over on my blog. And now back to the Fun Flock. So I have had this stuff in my stash forever, years, and I also have it in a variety of colors. When I went to the Stampendous website so I could get a link for it, they only have it in white. So I consulted with the Google, and I was able to find it over on eBay. And there is a link to that over on my blog. And the interesting thing was that on eBay it was listed as 3D nail art, as in fingernail art. Quick note about the card. After I colored up the heart, I fussy cut that, and then I wanted to stamp a sentiment in the heart, so I set it up in my platform, and I did repositionable glue on the back of the heart to keep it in place. stamped it with Memento Luxe Wedding White, did some heat embossing, and then after that it was time to put the card together. So anyway, back to the Fun Flock was listed as nail art, and there was actually a picture on my blog of fingernails with this flock on fingernails. I'm sure that there are people out there who would actually like that look of flock on fingernails, but for me, I just don't think that fingernails should be fuzzy. But it is what I found in my research to try and find it in a variety of colors, so that if you choose to make furry monsters, you at least have the option to get it. Once the glue was good and dry, I did use the coordinating die for the monster body and just ran it through my Gemini Junior. After I ran it through my die cut machine, that the fluffy stuff, the Fun Flock, was actually compressed down quite a bit, which I actually liked it better that way because it added a lot more dimension, a lot of depth to the Fun Flock. It also helped, it reduced the shedding from his little body. So that was something that I learned and definitely wanted to share here. Of course, I used an obscene amount of foam tape to pop my little monster up, and then it was just a matter of adding a few sequins up in the top left-hand corner. Now, for the other two cards in this video, I did not show the technique to do the Fun Flock again. I figured once was enough. So the last two cards, it's pretty much just putting them together. But with the pink monster, who is coming up in just a few seconds, there was something that I definitely needed to put in here because I found that things don't like to actually stick on top of the Fun Flock. So moving right along to card number 2, I did the monster, the pink monster, the same way that I did the green monster. But with, oh, and here in this close-up, you can actually see really well how the Fun Flock was compressed after running through the die cut machine. So my monster has already been stamped and fluffied up and colored and die cut out. So I'm starting out here with stamping the heart balloon and his little hands. I only colored one of his hands because I only needed one of his hands. I wanted his other arm to look like it was behind his back. When I colored the balloon, I kind of approached it the same way that I do with Christmas bulbs. So I did a light reflection over on the right hand side, and then it was just a matter of coloring in the rest of the balloon. And I tried to do a Copic glaze technique, which is something that I saw on a video from Sandy Alnock. I'm not sure if I really succeeded in that, but I was pretty happy with how the colors ended up and how the balloon turned out. And I'm really trying hard not to play music while I do coloring, so I'm probably just gonna jabber on about nothing for the moment. Oh, a couple more tips for Fun Flock. If you have a vent over your workspace table, make sure that your heat or air conditioning doesn't turn on while you're using Fun Flock. Same thing with a ceiling fan or a table fan. Make sure that you have those turned off. And above all else, do not sneeze or cough while using Fun Flock because it will go everywhere. And if you think glitter is hard to clean up, this stuff is definitely difficult to clean up. Once I was done coloring the balloon and the hand, I did use the die, the coordinating die for the balloon. For the hand, I fussy cut that out. Again, I did not, there is a die for the hands, but I did not want the white outline for the hand. So here's the tip. Because I used actual baker's twine for the balloon string, I wanted to make sure that his little hand would be stuck to that balloon string really well. So I put a line of glue just on that, and then I placed the baker's twine on top of that glue, pressed it down so it would hold, and then I just set that aside to dry. While that was drying, I'd run a piece of teal cardstock through my die cut machine to create a frame with 2 stitched rectangle dies, and then I used Versamark ink to stamp a diagonal striped background stamp. That stamp is from Gina K, and I don't use it nearly enough. Then it's just time to put the card together. So I put the frame on the polka dot paper, and then I adhered that to the top of a top folding white note card. Now, once I have that all put together, it was time to get that monster on there. And as I had mentioned, things do not like to stick on top of the Fun Flock. So I used like my dental tool again to scrape off some of the Fun Flock right there where I'm going to place his hand. And I did a pretty good line of glue and then put the hand with the string on top of that glue and put an acrylic block on top of it to hold it into place until I was comfortable enough that the glue was set. So that is a trick. Again, you do want to give your monster a haircut, I suppose, if you want to adhere the hand on top of the Fun Flock. I did use foam tape on the back of the little monster, and since I am using actual baker's twine for the balloon string, I did want to have the balloon popped up as well. So I do have foam tape on the back of there, but I also did a dollop of glue on the bottom of the balloon to make sure that it would stick to that baker's twine. I trimmed off the excess at the top, and then there was a little piece that was still sticking out, so I just used the point of my scissors to tuck that behind the balloon. At this point, I felt pretty confident that that glue had set where his hand was holding the balloon string, so I removed the block and trimmed off the excess twine there. And that pretty much finishes up the second card. Here's another quick look at card number 2, and then moving right along to card number 3 with the little blue monster. For this particular card, I kept the layout fairly simple. I've already had the monster stamped, colored, die cut, as well as the heart. What I am showing though is embossing the sentiment on the heart. And for the sentiment, I used the Brie Mine stamp set from Honeybee Stamps. And I put that into my stamp platform, used an anti-static tool, stamped with Versamark ink, and then applied white embossing powder and heat set that until it was nice and melted. After I did that, I did fussy cut this out instead of using the die as well, just so I didn't have that white background or that white border around the heart and his hands. I think that had I not used the Fun Flock, I probably would have used the dies. Anyway, for the stenciling, I used Spun Sugar Distress Oxide ink and a stencil from My Favorite Things. I think it's called Full of Hearts or Heartful. And I wanted a gradient look, so I used a lighter hand in the top left corner and the bottom right corner, and a heavier hand in the center. I ran it through my die cut machine with 2 stitched rectangle dies so that I could create a frame. I did adhere the center of the frame flat to a top folding A2 note card, and then used an incredibly obscene amount of foam tape for the outer frame. Once I had all of that foam tape put down, I adhered that to the front of the note card, and then adhered the heart to my little monster, and then used foam tape on the monster as well. That finishes up my first 3 cards for my Valentine's Day series. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, it would be fantastic if you did, and we'll catch you next time.